Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am going to present to you number 2 on my agenda, the Marriott expansion project. And let me just say to you, Mayor and Council, and to those present here today, while it's on my agenda, and I'm excited that I get to talk about this project, this project has been pushed by the mayor. He came into office and he wanted to get this project done, and the Development Authority and Chamber have worked hard to get this to the table. The President, CEO of the Columbus Convention Visitors Bureau has worked on this project. I'm going to ask Mr. Peter Boughton to come and stand with the Development Authority and Chamber representatives, and our Columbus, Georgia Convention and Trade Center, Haley Tillery, has been a key player in this. And Haley, I'm going to ask you to come and stand, because it's been something that the mayor's office has worked very hard on. His Chief of Staff, Richard Bishop, has worked really, really hard to bring this project to the table. And so it's been a team working together for something that's big, for something that's good for Columbus, Georgia. But we refer to it as the Marriott expansion project. And I'm going to talk for a few minutes, so just bear with me. But the Marriott expansion project is important to Columbus, Georgia. Since 2003, the city and or Development Authority, working with the CVB and Trade Center, have released 4 requests for proposals. We refer to them as RFPs, but 4 requests for proposals for a convention hotel. 1 in 2005, 1 in 2009, 1 in 2013, and the last one that we're dealing with today in 2018. All RFPs were sent to various local, regional, and national hotel developers, along with others in construction and architects. The latest RFP released in 2018 received 1 response. If the proposed MOU is approved, this project will be, no doubt, the game changer for Columbus when it comes to competing and attracting conferences and conventions and putting heads in beds. So, Mayor and Council, before I ask for your vote, I want to share an experience in our inability to compete for conferences, conventions that I've been involved in over the last 3 weeks. I also want those here and those watching by television to know some of the details about the proposed Memorandum of Understanding. But about 3 weeks ago, I was out of town, and an organization interested in bringing a conference to Columbus approached me, advising that they tried to bring a 3-day conference to Columbus last year, but Columbus was not competitive in cost of conference space and could not meet the request of 150 hotel rooms at one location. Yes, sir.
Mr. City Manager, if you'll forgive me, we have a counselor, I think, that wants to make a very quick request of council. So, Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, beg my forgiveness on this before we get too deep into your agenda, but I'd like to make it known today that I'm involved in real estate, primarily hotel development. I have various concerns surrounding this proposed matter today, and therefore I've made the decision. I think it's the right one to do that I abstain from the vote under the circumstances. So I'm going to leave the room, but I thank you, Mayor. And
thank you. Is there a motion to allow? Motion and a second to allow Councilor Davis' abstention. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Councilor. I'm sorry, Mr. Hughley, if you,
But as I was saying, Mayor and Council, and to those here, Columbus was not competitive in cost of conference space and could not meet the request of 150 hotel rooms at one location. This organization's next conference is March 2020. They like Columbus and again want to consider Columbus, but are concerned that nothing has changed with our ability to be competitive. The organization is looking at 2 other locations in Georgia. They shared with me. I asked them to give me a chance to work with our local officials to compete and change their decision about coming to Columbus. Last week, I met with Haley Tillery, Director of the Trade Center, and Peter Boughton, the President of and CEO of the Convention Visitors Bureau, separately to discuss the matter. Director Tillery was able to get the cost of space at the Trade Center worked out. President CEO Boughton was able to confirm 120 of 150 rooms required at one location. Mr. Boughton has been searching for bed and breakfast facilities in close proximity to make up the difference of 30 rooms, and he's been communicating back to this organization. With 120 of 150 rooms on the table, the organization said to me, let us look at other options and consider Columbus in the future. We have a critical need that must be addressed. I submit to you that the memorandum of understanding on the table this morning will help address this critical need. I often use in presentations to citizens and visitors what a known reporter said about the progress we are making in Columbus. I get excited, and as much as I hate to say it because the reporter is in the room, but I get excited every time I read the story. The reporter is former Ledger Enquirer reporter and now WRBL News reporter Chuck Williams, who happens to be sitting here on the front row. But breaking news from the Ledger Enquirer on September 15, 2016, written by Chuck Williams, says an upscale Marriott property is being planned for downtown Columbus. Ram Hotel's President Rinkesh Patel said on Wednesday. The Ledger Enquirer reported that a 106-room high-end Marriott brand hotel will be located in the 1200 block of Broadway. The AC Hotel is being planned by Columbus-based Ram Hotels. And it is the second hotel announcement for the 1200 block of Broadway this year. The Columbus-based Pizzo companies are planning a Hampton Inn on the same side of the street, just across from the new Columbus State University College of Education and Health Sciences. If 20 years ago, this reporter said, you could have envisioned 2 hotels in the 1200 block of Broadway, you are way smarter than I am. And I went past that block every single day. I didn't see it. If you actually thought that there would be a whitewater course in the Chattahoochee River, you're probably a dreamer, because that's all it was, a dream. What is happening downtown, he said, is starting to happen quickly. It is a 20-year overnight success story. A new restaurant here, a new restaurant there, a hotel here, a hotel there, a river center here, a Columbus State campus there. He said it all begins to add up. So Mayor and Council, there is momentum in Columbus, and it is beginning to add up. In the words of our mayor, who was quoted recently, this is big news. It is a game changer, the mayor said, in my estimation. I don't think we will fully understand the change it will make in Columbus for many, many years, Henderson said. When you figure out we are able to accommodate almost 700 rooms in the downtown area, the options are almost limitless. I could not agree more with Mayor Henderson's statement. The Pizzo companies are building an 88-room Hampton Inn in the intersection of Broadway and 12th Street, just 3 blocks north of the Marriott. Ram Hotels has a 100-room plus AC by Marriott under construction in the middle of the 1200 block of Broadway. The W.C. Bradley Company has come forward with plans to build a riverfront new hotel just across from the Thesis parking deck along 14th Street. Mayor and Council, your vote today can change the future of Columbus and Uptown. I'm requesting approval to execute an MOU for expansion of the Marriott Hotel. This proposed MOU is between the Development Authority of Columbus, the CCG and Family Holdings Sub LLC, the developer. The Marriott Hotel currently has 177 rooms. The developer will construct an expansion attached to the existing Marriott, added 90 plus, but at least 88 new rooms. This will bring the total number of rooms to at least 267. The developer will renovate the existing 177 guest rooms and the common areas to bring them to the same level as a newly constructed addition of 90 plus, but at least 88 rooms. With your approval, the developer will develop and construct a covered sky bridge connector that will extend from the Marriott Hotel to the Trade Center. Once constructed, the sky bridge connector will be owned and maintained by the city. The developer will maintain its brand as a full-service Marriott hotel for at least 20 years. The developer shall enter into a room block agreement which allows the Trade Center to block rooms for a convention at both the Marriott Hotel and the proposed hotel at 1201 Broadway. The room block agreement will be in effect when there is a group that needs 250 plus rooms. Project plans are to be completed within 6 months of executing the development and funding agreement, with construction beginning within 12 months of the agreement. Project completion, opening, is expected within 24 months of signing the agreement. So here are the numbers. City and/or the Development Authority, $2.3 million as follows. $1.3 million from Economic Development Fund, from the Economic Development Fund that the Mayor and Council set aside annually for economic development, $2.3 million. And $1 million from the Friends of Columbus Fund, which are private sector dollars supporting the Trade Center and Civic Center. The $1 million will be used to construct the Sky Bridge connector that will be owned and maintained by the city. The authority will issue revenue bonds through its normal procedures, and in connection therewith, the city will provide ad valorem property tax abatement as follows. Real property at 50% for 10 years. Personal property at 50% for 5 years, both beginning the year after the bonds are issued. Tax abatement is estimated at $1.6 million. In summary, if you add it all up, total incentives from the city and/or Development Authority will be $3.9 million. $2.3 million cash, $1.3 million from Economic Development Fund that the Mayor and Council again set aside annually for economic development, and $1 million from the Friends of Columbus Fund, plus $1.6 million tax abatements plus the value of the land and opportunity to lease the parking spaces in the parking deck at market rate. All incentives mentioned will be last-in funding. The developer's investment, estimated project value, more than $15 million. And then again, there's $1 million for the Skybridge connector. Total investment, more than $16 million. And so I will close with a quote from Chamber of Commerce VP of Economic Development, Brian Solito, who was heavily involved, along with Russ Carrica, the Development Authority, in working out the details of the proposed deal. Here's a quote from Brian Solito. "I've said it all along. This is a game changer," Solito said. "It's 265 rooms across the street from the Trade Center, connected access. It means more people coming to Columbus. It means more conventions, and it means more of a steady flow of activity in the uptown area." And so, Mayor and Council, I request your approval of the MOU for the Marriott Hotel expansion.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Councilor Huff.
Good morning. I want to let you know I am on board. Love the project, love everything about it. But I have to recuse myself because my son is a recent employee of that group. So I wish you all well and hope to see it all go into contracting phase and building phase.
Is there a motion to recuse, Councilor Huff?
Second.
Motion and a second made. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, you are recused. Councilor Crabb?
I have some questions.
Sure.
About parking. Parking is a concern of mine. And, well, first you say the parking, that we're giving parking at the going rate in the River Center parking lot? Is that what you stated?
Well, we will lease parking to the entity at market rate.
And what is market rate? Because
Well-
it's a free parking structure.
Well, we will determine the market rate for a lease. It's no different than what the market rate for leasing a building would be. Though it's free to the citizens, at least 125 spaces on the table that would be leased to the entity at market rate.
125 spaces?
Yes.
How many spaces are currently in that lot that the motel will be built on?
In the city's parking?
Yes, on that piece of property where the expansion is going to,
I don't know the exact number. I don't know if someone else knows, but I can tell you in our parking structure, we have more than 700 parking spaces.
Yeah, I think the number is 226.
Yeah.
226
Some of which
parking
will be absorbed by the
spaces.
building, not all, but some will be. Some number will be absorbed when the building is built, obviously. You have to build on
Right.
some of them. All of them will not be. So there'll be some of that 226 will remain. They got to move the pool, do all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole redesign of that parking area. But I would say there's the River Center space, parking deck space. There's space at the Trade Center, and Haley can speak to that if we wanted to. But when we have people that are staying in the Marriott and utilizing the convention, that there will certainly be spaces there. That space is rarely used to its maximum. So you could probably put, and Haley and I talked about, certainly could put 100 people who are staying at the Marriott, whether they use the valet service or whether they wanted to self-park, they could set aside parking during conventions inside the Trade Center as well. The other thing, if the thing does so well that parking becomes a problem, there's plenty of places you can build parking space, whether it's adding on to the parking deck at the Trade Center or finding other spaces. There's plenty of ways to go up with parking if it's that valuable.
Well, and if we have a parking problem, that's a good problem.
Right. Yeah, we'll.
I personally would like to see us be proactive and consider parking prior to it becoming a problem. And I feel like there is already a parking issue down in that area to begin with. We've had a report from our city auditor about parking in the uptown area, and he brought up some suggestions, some recommendations that we'll look into. But we're taking away some parking area, and then there's nothing in this MOU that says that we're putting any back. And I have a problem with that. And I'd like to see an amendment to where at least he has to put in some parking along with this improvement to preempt a future issue.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, if I may, the parking problem that the auditor talked about is a problem on Broadway. We don't have a parking problem or for lack of parking space available. People who circle Broadway, I go down and I circle Broadway, and there's not a parking space available, and I'll circle it 3 or 4 times before I make my final decision to go to the parking garage. And when I go to the parking garage, there's parking everywhere. And so I submit to you that we have a problem where people don't want to walk. That's what we have.
There are some people that cannot walk. So, I mean, even if we did something on this that to address handicap parking, you know, as part of this project.
And I think, Councilor Crabb, even if you approve this, there are still a couple of other hurdles, and one of those involves coming up with a parking plan. Now, there are a lot of people who, I'll stop short of calling them experts, but these are people who deal with that issue every single day with regards to parking, from the Convention Visitors Bureau, from the Trade Center, and even the consultant who his business is evaluating contracts for conference hotels that work along with the Development Authority. So I understand your concern. I really do think that there is more than ample parking now. It just has to be kind of cobbled together.
Are you telling me that if we vote for this, then there's the next step during the development? We don't know how the hotel is going to look now, and that he could be adding some parking to his design?
No, I'm not going to tell you he could be adding some parking. I will tell you, matter of fact, that I don't think it's a good idea to try to pass an addendum now that they've gotten this agreement put together, and then try to tell him, say, we want you to add parking. There's been a lot of discussion, I know, between, and I don't want to get too deep into the Development Authority's backyard here, but I know that there were discussions about, because there is money that was set aside in a bond issue back in, I think, 2003.
That's right.
It's almost $5.5 million to help with a parking structure that will support the uptown area and the Trade Center. That's not being used. It was not put into this project. So that money is still available. In the last contract, or the last proposal that was submitted, if I'm not mistaken, the city offered to build a parking structure and give that parking to an individual who would build a hotel on that site. So I think that, and I don't want to minimize it, because in parking, it's a good problem to have. It's a staple of a bustling downtown area in any community. But I think that is the most solvable issue we face with regards to adding rooms down there and putting more people there.
Let me add, I mean, we're talking about 267 rooms, so, and I'm not in the hotel business, but maximum, if everybody drove a car to the hotel and every room was full, you need 267 spaces, perhaps. If you got 125 that we're committing in the River Center parking deck, we've got 100 that we're committing in the Trade Center parking deck. That's 225. You've got 220-something in the existing parking lot, some of which, maybe half of which might be absorbed. But so you still got probably 100 there, and you've still got, just to the north of the Marriott today, you've probably got another 60. And then you've got street parking along along 10th. So there's probably, I mean, that's just off the top of my head. It's one of the reasons I've not considered parking to be a real big issue. I can count 400 available parking spots that we could, most of which you could say are only for use by people that are using that hotel. And so I don't know, you know, I don't see.
The close proximity to the historic district, and we get
But those
people
people
from the
can't park in
historic
those
district.
spaces. They can park in the River Center parking deck if they want to, but they're not doing that today. It's 80% empty on average, the parking deck at the River Center today is the number I've been told. That's third party, so it's not my number. But, so I do appreciate the question, but I don't see personally that there's a huge parking issue in that neighborhood for the people that are staying at the hotel, and the parking spaces that could be basically reserved for hotel attendees.
Okay.
And Mayor, we'll certainly take a close look and continue to monitor any parking concerns, but I believe I do believe, Councilor Crabb, we are fine with parking with the expansion that we're talking about doing. And the mayor made the point, we have the 2003B bond series, and we have $4.4 million sitting there for the specific purpose of creating parking spaces to support the hotel, a hotel, and we're not using that money.
Okay. One other area of concern was the tax abatement, and I'd like us to discuss that a little bit more. Can you break down the real and the personal property? And I want clarification that the personal property and the real property is for the expansion only and not for the current hotel.
The personal property does include the renovation expenses of the existing hotel. It does not include the real property that is the hotel as it sits today. In fact, that will be coming off, I think, in 2022. Is that right? So the real property will be the expansion. The personal property will include the furniture and fixtures in the new property and what is utilized to renovate the existing hotel.
And how long is the abatement for the personal property?
5 years, 50%, 5 years.
Okay, I just want to be really clear that I don't, and I've said this before when we talked earlier, and I think you guys have cleaned up most of it. I just don't want the multiple properties by this developer. I don't want us to muddy the water with, other pieces of property that they own and this one. We got to keep it clean.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem Pugh. Councilor Barnes.
This is a no-brainer. This is huge with a capital H for Columbus. And I agree with you. They say confession is good for the soul, so we might as well have a little bit of church here. I've done the same thing, drive around downtown, when we have plenty of free parking. And in fact, you and I were at two different conferences in Savannah. Mm-hmm. You and I were parked at the same garage, and we had to walk in different directions to get to our. So you're right, Columbus doesn't have. I think that we've just gotten a little bit spoiled, and we don't like walking. But, and I do understand your concerns, but to be perfectly honest with you, Columbus doesn't have a parking problem. I mean, we have plenty of parking. In fact, I got the list from, I think Chiasha sent me something about 3 weeks ago because someone had a concern, and I forwarded Chiasha's email to me, to that person, to let them know where the free parking is at. So I just wanted to make, but this right here is huge with a capital H, and for anyone who's had to go to conferences anywhere else, you know that we are losing a lot of money, and this year is a huge game changer for Columbus.
Thanks, sir. Councilor Woodson?
Yes, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. As the district representative, I'm very excited about the project, but I also have a couple of questions. When we're talking about the parking spaces that are going to be reserved, 120 parking spaces, which people that were going to be visiting is going to pay for, do you know how we're going to separate that? Because we have free parking in Columbus, and if you're reserving 120 spaces for the hotel to go ahead and have people pay for, how are you going to tell the difference of our community and those visiting? So that when they get there, they don't end up paying parking.
Well, I think one thing that will make it easier to do, I think it'd be very simple to put a sign on it, just like you do when you go down to the Synovus deck, and there's reserved for Synovus, reserved for Page Scranton. You'd have reserved for Marriott,
But I can be a
Business.
guest and all the parking lots be
well-
full, and I can just go ahead
Well-
and just park.
Let-
and
let me-
I would
Russ.
think they would give them hang tags or
Russ,
something to
Russ.
park your car.
Let me just say, we will place signs up, and we can number the spaces. And as Marriott assign those spaces, they're going to have valet parking and so forth.
So there's not going to be someone there saying anything. It's going to be open like it is
Well,
today.
it can be open.
Policed.
Excuse me. We have parking enforcement people, and they go park out there, and even in our garage here, within minutes, you're going to get cited. So I envision we're going to put signs up, and we're going to number the spaces, and they are going to be able to know what spaces they place people in. And if they get there and someone's in their space and they don't belong to that hotel, we are going to cite them.
Okay, I guess I misexpressed my concern. What I'm concerned about is someone's going to be in the booth right there when people come in and out of the parking lot.
No.
Yes or no?
No.
That's all I needed to know, because I didn't want somebody to be sitting there working, and a citizen comes and gets charged. That's what I was asking
No,
about.
no, that's-
Not about, I know the signage because I use our
Yeah.
parking lots. I don't go and park in the city. I think our parking lots are safe. I go to them all the time by myself at all hours of the night, and I walk it.
No.
I don't have a problem with that, but I want to make sure, because when you're saying you're renting out 120 spaces, the first thing that came to my mind is someone's going to be sitting there.
No.
You know, charging or watching or checking or so forth.
No.
So that is my question, and I apologize if I didn't phrase it correctly, but that is my concern. I don't want to see an attendant there at any time for any event, because then how do we know the citizen's not going to be charged for parking?
Yeah. But, yeah, just for clarification, there will not be an attendant there. And parking spaces leased to the Marriott that they pay for will be, there will be signage or numbered spaces. And there will be a method of giving them something when they check into the hotel, that your parking space is number 90. And when they go over there, they're going to go to the Marriott parking space number 90. And if they get over there and someone's in that space, then they got to report it back to the desk. The desk is going to notify. We don't have the system yet, but I can imagine they're going to notify us, and we're going to cite them, because Metro's parking management enforce the parking garage. Right now, they have spaces down there that says city vehicles. It's where they park their vehicles, the pool vehicles. If you park your vehicle there, you are going to get, when you get back, you'll have a ticket on it. So they have a system that works.
I'm not concerned about that. And my question was answered immediately once I rephrased it. My only concern is I don't want to see an attendant sitting there, because I do not want to see our citizens be charged for something that we said was free to them.
We'll make
That's
sure,
all.
we'll make certain that there's no chance of any citizen not staying in the Marriott being charged.
Or even just, parking in the Ironworks parking lot. I mean, that's my concern there. That's what the basic of the question was. Can you explain a little bit more about the personal abatement? Tax abatement, just a little bit more,
So that
because it said
is-
50%
Yeah, that
in
is-
5 years. Can you put it in?
Yeah, so you get taxed, obviously, on construction on buildings, right? So that's the real property. Personal property will be the furniture and fixtures that go into the facility. So if they spend, I don't know, if they spend $4 million on beds and mattresses and TVs and carpets and all that kind of thing, then that will be abated. 50% value, so if they put, for example, $4 million of furniture and fixtures in, their assessed value would be $2 million instead, would be 50% of that $4 million for the first 5 years of that they're paying the taxes on it.
Yeah, which they will not pay taxes on.
They won't, yeah, they will pay on $2 million, they won't
Okay.
pay on the other 50%.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is that
Thank you, ma'am.
fairly accurate?
Thank you, ma'am. Counselor Thomas?
Two things. One is, Mr. City Manager, as I understand it, all of the parking in the River Center parking garage is at no charge. So it won't make any difference if you're parked in a spot that says reserved for the Marriott, or if you're parked somewhere else. You're not going to be charged for the parking. The only reason I would assume that we would block off places for the Marriott is, as you said, because they're going to do valet parking and they just need a spot to do it. But nobody will be charged for parking in the parking garage. Is that a true statement?
That is correct when you say nobody, and the reason we intend to lease parking spaces to the Marriott at market rate is that, the Marriott could decide we're going to valet park for $20, and they're making money. Well, we want to get paid.
Well, it doesn't matter to us about that if they're paying us to lease
Exactly.
the parking
That's right.
place.
Yeah, but if they are paying us market rate for the 125, then we want to reserve them for
Right.
them.
Right,
And so when they charge someone to valet park their car, we've gotten our money.
right,
So
right.
that's why.
One of the other things that I wanted to say, in a former life, I was a conference designer. I planned conferences, statewide conferences in the state of California for about 15 years. And if what you're describing to me was available for a conference that I was planning, I'd snap it up in a minute. It's convenient, it's inexpensive, it's in a place where if I want to go back to my hotel room after the meeting and vegetate, I can. If I want to go downtown and, not that I would want to do this, but if I wanted to go down and, have a drink and whatever, those kinds of things. And I think one of the things that we may see too, we currently have a lot of activity on Broadway with Uptown. And this may just incite them to do some other kinds of things on Broadway for visitors who are coming to the city. I think it's a terrific, it's going to be a terrific venue, and I expect that it will be full. I also expect that some of these other hotels that are a little further off, if their customers complain too much about walking this 3 or 4 blocks, they'll figure out a way to get them down there in a golf cart or a van or a trolley, and I think it'll be, as someone said, it's a game changer for Columbus and for the convention business in Columbus. I think that one of the things that I didn't hear the city manager say was, once we provide some of these financial incentives, what our return on the dollar will be. But I think we will experience a good return on our dollar when all of this is up and running. And I'm anxious for it to get up and running. We've only been doing this for what, 20 years? Let's get it done. I'm sort of like Mayor Pro Tem and Forest Road. I hope it's finished in my lifetime. So I appreciate the work that the Chamber and the Development Authority and the CVB and the Trade Center have pulled together. This is another example of how we do business in Columbus, and we pull together and do what needs to be done to make it work. So thanks for your work, and I know it's not, you all sometimes feel like nobody cares, but we do, and we do appreciate it, and we appreciate what you're doing. And Mr. City Manager, your folks that were involved in this also. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, there's no further lights on, so there being no other discussion, Bruce, can we cue this? Councilors, if you would, please register your votes. And it passes. All right, great. I would love to give a chance to speak to, if you'll indulge me just for another few minutes, to Ms. Tillery, Mr. Bowden, and Mr. Salino. In no particular order, y'all come up. I'd just love to hear you give a few comments on what this means for your particular piece of the world.
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for believing in this cause. The key word you keep hearing is game changer, and it's not being overused because it truly will be a game changer. I'm constantly, my team and I are having to turn down business almost on a weekly basis now. Clients come and fall in love with our town. They fall in love with the venue because of the uniqueness, the history behind it, how convenient everything is within walking distance, but there's not enough beds for heads. And I'm so tired of having that reason because I know it's something that we can fix. The city of Columbus is so special, and knowing now that we can start this infrastructure in our downtown community, it's going to change our form of business. The convention center had a vision back in 2004 with the major renovation that took place that we would have a convention hotel. We would have something that would connect our citizens and our attendees to be able to have a great place to come have an event, but also be able to walk to a hotel that was connected. And that vision needs to become reality. So I'm excited. The numbers, we have them. They've been forecasted. You talked about revenue. This will be a change for our infrastructure having this. It's going to change our form of business to where we can truly be competitive. We're constantly losing business to some of our competitive markets statewide, but there's also many organizations that would come nationally if we had enough beds to support them. So this is step one of a vision that was made back in 2004, which I know will continue to grow and be only stage one to what's for the future with Columbus. And I'm excited. As the director of the Trade Center, our team is excited because we know what this change can bring and we're ready for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Haley. Mr. Bowden?
Good morning. Thank you again for your confidence in us. And this truly is a great example of a public-private partnership. We talked about this when the initial RFP was issued some years ago, 2004, that when the city invested in the Trade Center, we didn't finish that project with that expansion because the convention hotel never came online. So this, in essence, allows us to finish that project. In other words, it puts that exclamation point on the investment that the city made years ago in the expansion of the Trade Center. It certainly allows our team to begin that prospecting process. To give you an example, using some of the examples that the city manager and I have talked about, is that in 1999 and in 2006, we hosted the Governor's Conference on Tourism in Columbus. Columbus today is no longer large enough to meet that RFP to host that conference because of not having that infrastructure connected to the Trade Center. Your vote today allows us to get back in that game. It allows us to compete against cities like Augusta and Macon, Athens, and so forth. It allows us to reach way beyond just the state of Georgia in bringing larger conventions. It allows us to push that number to 500 to 1,000 plus attendees that will create a significant economic impact for the city. I know my team has been talking about it internally for many months. We actually have a call scheduled later this week to talk about this investment that the city has secured today to allow us to begin visioning how we can bring that new business to Columbus. So we're super excited about that and certainly appreciate your confidence in the team between the Convention Center and the CVB as far as bringing new business to Columbus. This is an amazing day.
Thank you, thank you. Brian, Russ, you want to come up too? I mean, you may have some comments from the Development Authority side.
Well, not to belabor the point, but just to let you all know, Mr. Mayor and members of council, that pursuing special and unique opportunities as part of Columbus 2025, it came out of the Regional Prosperity Initiative. And it was recognized that we were woefully inadequate with rooms adjacent to the Trade Center to be able to attract larger conventions. And we are very bullish on Peter and his team at the CVB and Haley and her team at the Trade Center. And we can't wait for this construction to begin and have truly a first-class venue in Columbus that can really compete on the southeastern landscape. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. Russ, anything?
I mean, I won't belabor the point, but I think I did hear it say one way was what did I say? Sorry. But anyway, the point was made to me early on in this process that we've got this world-class trade center that is underutilized because we don't have simple things like hotel rooms. So that's a simple problem we're trying to fix. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I just appreciate y'all's confidence in going along with it, and hopefully we see it coming out of the ground soon.
Well, thank you for all your work on it with the Development Authority. Councilor Barnes?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Russ and Peter Haley and for all, and the mayor. But let me just say one thing, city manager. I always tease the city manager because I know the city manager runs every morning religiously, Monday through Friday, and he walks on Saturday. And I keep saying to him, I say, you know, Mr. City Manager, I don't see any of that gray, and it's not Grecian formula. So I said, it must be the fact that you're out running and doing stuff every morning. What a lot of y'all may not know, the city manager, he manages the city. And a lot of you, I know, don't know all that was involved in having having this game changer happen. It's positive, but there was also a lot of discussion negative. And we call it in the military, when we're under attack, we call anyone in the military, know when we say incoming, you start to hunker down somewhere. Well, it must be that running because there was a lot of incoming coming in about this here, but this is a game changer. You have to be forward thinking. You can't look at the trees to obscure your vision to the next level, and we're headed to the next level with something like this here. And I just wanted to take the time. I thank everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're coming on board, but the city manager has been wrestling with this bear for quite some time. And so, Isaiah, thank you for looking forward. This is a game changer, and it's going to be huge with a capital H for Columbus.
Thank you. Well, I will belabor the point. I just want to say thank you to this council for making the decision that you made today. It is significant. When I think of Columbus and people captured in a picture, they typically show that shot looking northward up the river, right along, so you see Phoenix City and Columbus. I think this is going to be another iconic photograph. I think when that true conference hotel gets completed and connected by a sky bridge, that is going to change the facade, it's going to change the impression, it's going to change the attitude of people when they look at this community. So I think it's good. I know we started talking about this before I even took office, and so to see it come to fruition is a pretty neat deal.